The battlefield
We have to
smelled
get
of
out of
smoke
here
and
now.
fear. The
The whole
human
city is
soldier,
coming
Daniel,
down.
moved through the ruins with heavy steps. His uniform was torn. His face was covered in dust, but his eyes were sharp. Always searching, always ready. He had been trained for war, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this. The city had once been full of life, filled with alien families, strange markets, and tall, shining towers. Now it was a broken place. Burned walls and shattered glass covering the ground. Alien children cried in the distance, their voices mixing with the sounds of fire and explosions. Daniel's heart beat faster, because he knew another attack was coming. And then he saw her. A small alien girl, no older than 10 by human guess, sitting near the wreckage of a broken building. Her skin was pale blue, her silver hair tangled with dirt, and her big glowing eyes were filled with tears. She held a piece of bread close to her chest, shaking, as if it was the only safe thing in her world. Daniel froze for a second, but then instinct took over. He ran toward her, calling out, "Stay. Down, don't move." The girl looked up, confused, her lips trembling as she tried to stand. But it was too late. From the sky, a missile streaked down and slammed into the nearby street. The blast shook the ground and threw Daniel off his feet. He hit the wall hard, his ears ringing, his vision blurred, but through the smoke he saw its shards of deadly shrapnel spinning through the air, flying toward the girl. Daniel's body moved before his mind could even think. He pushed himself off the ground and charged forward. The alien girl's eyes widened as he threw himself. Over her, wrapping his arms around her small frame, the sharp metal tore into his back, his side, his arms. Hot pain rushed through him, but he held on tight. The sound of the explosion faded into silence for him. All he could hear was the pounding of his heart, and the soft sobs of the alien child under his chest. He could feel her shaking, could feel her tears soaking his uniform, and he whispered, "You're safe. Don't be afraid." His vision blurred again, but this time it was not the smoke. It was the blood loss, the weakness taking over. He tried to move, but his body would not listen. The girl cried harder, gripping his hand, begging in her language that he could not understand. But he knew what she meant. She was begging him not to leave her. The world grew darker around him. Figures rushed in from the distance, tall shapes, with glowing armor and sharp weapons, aliens, protectors maybe, or soldiers from her people. He could not tell. All he saw was the girl's glowing eyes looking down at him, full of fear and hope at the same time. "Why? Why would you save me?" Her voice cracked through the air. Speaking in broken human words, Daniel wanted to answer, but his mouth was heavy. Still, he managed to whisper one last thing. "Because you're just a child." His body collapsed. Fully, his face hitting the cold ground, the girl screamed, holding on to him as more aliens surrounded them. Her small hands tried to stop the bleeding, tried to push against the wounds, but it was useless. The shrapnel had gone too deep. The last thing Daniel saw before the darkness swallowed him was the girl's glowing eyes shining brighter. Her tears fell onto his skin, glowing as if her sorrow carried some strange power. And then he was gone. But the aliens who stood around them whispered in fear and shock, for they saw something the human did not, the shrapnel glowing inside his body, merging with his blood. The explosion had not just hurt him, it had changed him. The alien girl cried into his chest, unaware of what was happening, unaware that the man who had saved her was no longer just human, and unaware that this sacrifice was only the beginning. The world was dark, and Daniel thought he was dead. There was no pain, no sound, only an endless quiet. For a moment, he almost welcomed it, because at least the little girl was safe. But then, slowly, a faint sound reached him, like voices speaking in whispers. The voices were strange, soft but sharp, carrying words he did not understand. And then came the light, his. eyes open to brightness that stung. He gasped, trying to sit up, but his body refused. He was lying on a smooth bed of glowing crystal, and strange golden wires ran across his chest and arms. He looked down and froze. The wounds he had taken, the shrapnel cuts, the blood, they were gone, but in their place, glowing lines marked his skin, as if his veins now carried light instead of blood. Around him stood figures, tall and alien. Their skin shimmered with pale silver tones, and their eyes glowed softly in the dark chamber. Their armor looked alive, pulsing with energy like it was breathing. They were not soldiers he had seen before. These were different, older, powerful. Daniel's heart pounded. He tried to move again, but golden restraints tightened around his wrists. The aliens spoke rapidly to one another, their voices rising and falling in rhythm. Then one stepped forward, lowering its head to study him. Its voice entered his ears like a strange echo, but then it shifted, becoming words he could understand. "This is the human," the alien said slowly. "He carries the mark of the core." Daniel swallowed hard. "What? What are you talking about?" he whispered, his throat dry. But no one answered. Then, from the side, he heard a smaller voice, soft but clear. "Daniel." His eyes darted to the corner. There she was, the little alien girl, the one he had saved. She ran to him, her silver hair flowing, her glowing eyes filled with relief. "You live," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought you were gone." Daniel almost smiled. She had learned his name somehow. He wanted to ask her questions, but the other aliens stepped closer, surrounding him. The girl placed herself between him and them, her small hands spread wide. "You cannot harm him," she cried. "He saved me. He is under my protection." The aliens hesitated, whispering again. Finally, one of them nodded, but their gaze on Daniel was not of kindness. It was suspicion, maybe even fear. Daniel's mind raced. Why were they afraid of him? He had only done what any soldier would do, throw himself in the path of danger to protect a child. But then he remembered the last moment before he blacked out, the way the shrapnel had glowed inside his skin, the way her tears had burned like fire against his wounds. Something had changed inside him, something not natural. The chamber's doors opened with a heavy sound. Everyone turned as a new figure entered. She was tall, almost 7 feet, and dressed in flowing robes made of light. Her presence made even the armored guards lower their heads. Her eyes burned like twin stars as she walked forward. The girl whispered, "The Queen Mother." Daniel stiffened. So this was their leader. The alien queen stopped in front of him, her expression unreadable. She studied him for a long time, then finally spoke. "You should be dead," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "No human, no alien, no warrior has ever survived the touch of the core." Daniel frowned. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice weak. "I was hit by shrapnel. I only tried to save her." The queen's eyes flicked to the girl, who nodded fiercely. "He saved me," she said. "He gave his life for me." For the first time, Daniel thought he saw a flicker of emotion on the queen's face. Not kindness, but interest, maybe even respect. Still, her tone was cold. "Human," she said. "You are alive because the core chose you. But if you betray us, you will not die quickly." The chamber fell silent. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. He wanted answers. What was the core? Why were they calling him chosen? What had happened to his body? But before he could speak again, the queen turned to her guards. "Take him to the trials," she ordered. "Let us see if he truly deserves this second life." The girl gasped, grabbing Daniel's arm. "No, he is weak. He just woke. You cannot." But the queen raised her hand, silencing her. Daniel's restraints unlocked, and rough hands pulled him up from the glowing bed. His body felt heavy, but as the guards dragged him forward, he noticed something strange. Every step he took, the glowing lines in his skin pulsed brighter, like fire was. running through his veins, giving him strength. Fear and confusion battled inside him. He had survived the explosion, but now he wondered, had he survived as a man, or had he become something else? As the doors closed behind him, Daniel looked back at the little alien girl. Her glowing eyes were wide with fear. "Don't let them break you," she whispered. "You are more than they know." And with that, the guards dragged him into the shadows, toward whatever trials awaited. The chamber lights dimmed, and the Queen's cold voice lingered in his mind. "You should be dead, but instead you may be our weapon." The halls of the alien palace were vast and silent. Daniel's boots echoed against the shining floor as the guards dragged him forward. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, pulsing like veins of light. Every step made the air feel heavier, as if the building itself was alive. Daniel had seen many war zones, but nothing like this. The guards pushed him into a chamber shaped like a circle. The walls stretched high above, disappearing into shadow. The floor glowed faint blue, and in the center was a raised platform. The air carried a chill, though Daniel could not tell if it came from the room or the stares of the aliens surrounding him. High above, seated on a throne carved from crystal and flame, was the Queen, her glowing eyes locked on him, sharp and cold. Beside her stood advisors in heavy robes, their heads bent close as they whispered. Daniel could feel their distrust. Like knives pressed to his skin, one of the guards shoved him forward onto the glowing platform. For a moment, freedom tasted real. The open sky above him, the city glowing below. But that peace lasted only seconds. A sharp horn echoed across the alien towers. Blue flames lit up in the distance, racing across rooftops. It was the signal. The Queen's hunters were on the move. They were coming for him. The little alien girl, still clutching his hand, pulled him urgently through a narrow street. Her feet knew every corner, every shadow, but Daniel's chest was burning, his glowing veins pulsing faster with each step. It felt like something inside him was dragging him toward danger, not away from it. "They'll find us," Daniel said through heavy breaths. "Even if we run to the edge of this city, they'll find us." The girl looked up at him with eyes that burned with strange confidence. "Then we don't run," she whispered. "We make them chase where we want them to go." Before Daniel could ask what she meant, a screech cut through the night. A ship swooped down, its metal wings sharp like blades. Spotlights cut through the dark, locking onto them. The girl shoved Daniel into an alley, just as energy blasts scorched the ground where they had stood. Daniel felt the storm inside him react instantly. His body shook, his vision blurred with blue fire. The marks on his arms flared so brightly that the shadows danced like living creatures. The ship fired again, but the blast bent midair, curving away from him as if the energy itself feared to touch his body. Daniel stumbled back, horrified. "I didn't mean to do that," he whispered. The girl grabbed his sleeve, pulling him forward. "You don't have to mean it," she said firmly. "It's who you are now." They darted through the winding paths of the city, but everywhere they turned, soldiers poured in, armored and armed. The Queen's voice carried from glowing speakers that lit up on every tower. "Do not kill the human," she commanded, her voice calm and sharp as glass. "Bring him to me." Alive, her tone made Daniel's blood freeze. Alive, yes, but for what? Experimentation, control, or worse? He could not guess. The girl suddenly yanked him into a hidden stairwell that led downward. The deeper they went, the louder the sounds of marching feet echoed above. Torches burned along the walls here. The air grew hotter, heavier, and Daniel noticed something strange. The marks on his body pulsed stronger, like they recognized this place. The stairwell opened into a massive underground chamber. At its center stood a broken, half-buried crystal, the same color as the glow in his veins. The girl froze, awe in her eyes. "This is one of the lost cores," she whispered. No one alive has seen it in centuries? Except you. Daniel felt his chest tighten. The crystal pulsed as if it were alive. His veins responded in rhythm, every beat pulling him closer. But before he could step forward, the chamber shook. The hunters had found them. Dozens of soldiers stormed the chamber, their weapons humming with deadly light. They spread out in a circle, trapping Daniel and the girl near the core. The lead soldier raised his weapon. "By order of the Queen, surrender," he barked. Daniel looked around, his fists trembling. The storm inside him begged to be unleashed, but he remembered the girl's words, "Don't let it control you." He raised his hand slowly, pretending to yield, but his eyes never left the core. As the soldiers moved closer, the crystal behind him flared. A shockwave tore through the chamber, throwing armored warriors into the air like dolls. The ground split, flames erupting from the cracks. Daniel stood at the center, the glow in his veins burning brighter than ever. The soldiers screamed in panic, shouting that the core was awakening. But Daniel wasn't the one controlling it. The core was. Calling to him, feeding him. He could feel its voice in his head, deep and ancient. Protector. Destroyer. Choose. He staggered, gripping his skull, torn between fear and rage. The girl shouted his name, her small hands clutching at his arm. Her voice cut through the storm, grounding him once again. "Daniel, don't let it take you. You're still you." The soldiers regrouped, their commander snarling. "Enough. Kill the girl, take him alive." At those words, something inside Daniel snapped. He roared, and the chamber exploded with blue fire. Every weapon aimed at the girl melted. The floor shook, the core's light spilling through Daniel as if he were a vessel. He moved without thought, faster than human reflex, disarming soldiers, shattering armor. Each blow felt both alien and natural. Each strike terrified him, because it wasn't just him. It was the core moving through him. When the last soldier fell, the chamber fell silent. The girl looked at him with wide eyes, torn between fear and admiration. Daniel stood breathing hard, his body glowing like a living torch. "I didn't want this," he whispered, his voice breaking, "but I can't stop it anymore." Above them, faint echoes of ships filled the night sky. The Queen had felt the awakening of the core. Her voice whispered in the minds of her soldiers across the city, "Do not let him escape." And high in her throne room, she smiled for the first time in years. "Finally," she murmured, "the core has chosen its vessel. Now the game begins." Daniel looked up, his body trembling. He wasn't running anymore. He knew he couldn't. The hunt had begun, and he was both prey and weapon. Great. Now it's time to bring Daniel closer to the Queen and push the story into its most. The chamber still glowed faintly from the core's awakening. Daniel stood trembling, his body alive with fire he could not fully control. The alien girl clung to his arm, her small frame shaking, but her eyes filled with determination. He wanted to believe he was still just a man, but every time his veins pulsed, the truth whispered otherwise. The silence did not last long. A loud crash shook the ceiling, sending dust and stones raining down from the shadows of the broken stairwell. Above, armored figures descended, but these were not ordinary soldiers. They moved with precision, their armor carved with strange patterns, their weapons glowing with a deeper light. The Queen's elite hunters. "Daniel, we have to go," the girl urged, pulling him toward a hidden passage at the edge of the chamber. But Daniel's steps faltered. He could feel something strange, a pull, a voice echoing in his mind. It was not the core this time. It was her, the Queen. Her presence slid into his thoughts, like silk, soft but suffocating. "You cannot run." The voice whispered inside him. "You are mine now, human." Daniel shook his head violently, his breath ragged. "No," he muttered. "I don't belong to you." The girl looked at him, confused, unaware of the silent battle inside. His mind, the hunters surrounded them, their leader stepping forward. His face was hidden, but his voice carried authority. "The queen invites you," he said coldly. "Refuse, and she will burn the city around you until nothing remains." Daniel's fists clenched. He looked down at the girl, who stared at him with pleading eyes. He couldn't risk her safety, not after everything. Slowly, he raised his hands. "Fine," he said, voice heavy. "I'll go." The hunters bound his wrists in chains that glowed with suppressing energy. The moment they touched him, his glowing veins dimmed, his power fading into silence. It felt like a cage pressed deep into his bones. The girl screamed and tried to grab his arm, but one hunter shoved her aside. Daniel roared in anger, the chains biting into his skin. "Don't touch her," he shouted, his voice echoing with enough force to shake the walls. For a moment, even the hunters hesitated, but then their leader ordered sharply, "Bring the girl too. The queen will want her close." They dragged Daniel through the streets. Crowds of aliens gathered to watch, their glowing eyes wide with fear and whispers. Some pointed at him as though he was a monster. Others bowed their heads as if in respect. The city itself seemed alive with rumor. "The human has the core," voices spread. "The queen has finally trapped him." At the heart of the city, the throne hall towered above everything. Its walls shimmered with liquid metal, and the floor glowed faintly with alien runes. The queen sat upon a throne carved of crystal, her presence dominating the room even before Daniel was dragged in. She was tall, taller than any soldier. Her armor gleamed black and silver, her crown burned with pale fire, but her eyes sharp golden. And endless never left Daniel. They studied him like a predator studies prey, or perhaps like a collector admires a rare treasure. The hunters forced Daniel to his knees, chains clinking against the floor. The girl was held at the edge of the hall, her cries echoing faintly. Daniel kept his head up, his eyes locked on the queen, refusing to look away. "You risked everything for a child not of your kind," the queen said softly, her voice carrying. Across the hall, her tone was calm, but underneath it lay thunder. "Why?" Daniel's chest heaved, but his answer came steady. "Because it was the right thing to do." The queen's lips curved into something between a smile and a sneer. "Right?" She repeated slowly, as though tasting the word, a word for the weak, for those who pretend morality has meaning in war. She rose from her throne, her steps deliberate. "You think you saved her, human, but in truth, you doomed yourself." Her hand stretched out, and the chains on Daniel's wrists flared with light. Agony surged through him, his veins glowing painfully as the core's power was pulled and bent by her will. He screamed, his body shaking against the floor. The girl cried out his name, trying to run to him, but guards held her back. The queen leaned close, her golden eyes inches from his face. "You are not a soldier anymore," she whispered. "You are a weapon, and I am your wielder." Daniel's breath came in broken gasps, but even through the pain, his eyes blazed with defiance. Instantly, golden restraints rose from the floor, wrapping his arms and legs. He tried to pull free, but the glowing chains tightened with every movement. The chamber grew silent. The queen rose from her throne. Her voice carried across the room, calm but heavy. "You stand in the hall of judgment, human," she said. "You should not exist. Not like this, not after what happened. But you do, and so we must decide. Are you a threat or a weapon?" Daniel clenched his fists. "I didn't ask for any of this," he said firmly, though his voice cracked from the weight of the moment. "I only tried to save her, that's all." Whispers rippled through the crowd of alien nobles. One of the advisors stepped forward, pointing a long finger at Daniel. "He lies, my queen," the alien hissed. "No human has ever touched the core and lived. He is a danger to us all. A curse walking in flesh." The queen's gaze never left Daniel. Her eyes glowed brighter, piercing him. At last she spoke again. Then let us see the truth. The floor beneath Daniel began to glow stronger. The platform hummed, the restraints burning hot against his skin. Suddenly, pain shot through his body. The glowing lines beneath his skin pulsed wildly. Like fire exploding in his veins, Daniel screamed, falling to his knees. The chamber shook with energy. Gasps filled the room. The glowing light spread from Daniel's body, casting strange patterns on the walls. It was power, raw and alive, and it made even the Queen's advisors step back in fear. The Queen raised her hand, halting the energy. The light faded, leaving Daniel panting, his body trembling but alive. The glowing marks along his veins still burned, but quieter now. The Queen's voice broke the silence. "So it is true," she said softly. "The core chose you." Daniel looked up, sweat dripping down his face. "What is this core you keep talking about?" he demanded. "What did it do to me?" The Queen tilted her head, studying him. "The core is the heart of our world," she said. "It is living energy, the blood of our ancestors. No outsider has ever survived contact with it. Yet you carry it now in your veins." Murmurs spread again, half fearful, half awed. The Queen stepped closer to the edge of her throne, her voice sharper. "But power comes with purpose. Why would the core choose a human? Why would it mark you? Who came from beyond the stars?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't know," he said. "I didn't choose it either." His voice grew softer. "I only chose to save her." His eyes flicked toward the little alien girl standing near the side of the chamber. She was watching with wide, glowing eyes, her small hands clasped together tightly for a moment. Their gazes locked, and something in the Queen's expression shifted, almost too quickly to see. But it was their curiosity, maybe even doubt. One of the advisors stepped forward again. "This is weakness, my Queen," he spat. "The human cannot be trusted. He will destroy us from within. We must kill him now before the core's corruption spreads." The Queen raised her hand, silencing him. Her eyes burned brighter, fixed on Daniel. "No," she said slowly. "Killing him will not answer my questions. The core gave him life for a reason, and until I know why, he will remain." The chamber shook with murmurs, anger, and disbelief, but none dared speak against her word. The Queen leaned forward, her voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "Human," she said, "you live. For now, but hear me. If you betray my people, if you bring harm to this world, your death will not be swift. You will beg for it, and I will deny you." The glowing restraints faded, and Daniel fell to his knees, gasping for breath. The guards released him, though their eyes were cold and sharp. The Queen turned away, returning to her throne. "Take him to the lower halls," she commanded, "until we know the truth. Let him remain a prisoner of the core." The guards dragged Daniel back, but as he stumbled, the little alien girl rushed to his side. She grabbed his hand, her small fingers wrapping around his glowing skin. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "You saved me. I won't let them break you." Daniel looked at her, and for the first time since the explosion, he felt something other than fear. He felt hope, fragile but real. But as the doors closed behind them, he caught one last look at the Queen. Her glowing eyes followed him with an expression he could not read. Was it suspicion, or was it something far more dangerous? The lower halls were nothing like the shining palace above. Here the air was damp and cold, dripping with the sound of water. Echoing through stone tunnels, strange glowing moss covered the walls, giving off a faint green light. Daniel was shoved into a chamber with no windows, only a heavy metal door. Chains clinked as the guards locked him to the wall. "Stay alive if you can," one of them sneered before leaving. The door slammed shut, leaving Daniel in silence. He leaned back against the cold stone, his body aching, his mind racing. His hands trembled as he looked at the faint glow still running along his veins. The marks pulsed, dim at first, then brighter, almost like they were breathing. What did they do to me? He whispered to himself, but there was no answer, only the dripping sound of water. Hours passed, or maybe days. Daniel could not tell. Sleep came in fragments, broken by visions. In his dreams, he saw fire spreading across alien skies. He saw figures in armor kneeling before something bright and terrible. And always, he saw the same core of light, pulsing like a heart, calling to him when he woke. Sweat covered his skin, but the glowing marks on his arms burned hotter, brighter. Something inside him felt like it was growing stronger, like a storm trapped in his chest. The door finally opened with a sharp hiss. It wasn't a guard this time, but the little alien girl. Her big glowing eyes looked worried. Quiet, she whispered as she slipped inside. They don't know I'm here. Daniel sat up, chains rattling against the wall. You shouldn't be here, he said softly. If they find you. She shook her head fiercely. You saved me, she whispered. Now I save you. Her small hands touched the glowing chains, and suddenly they flickered, then vanished. Daniel blinked, stunned. You? How did you do that? She looked down shyly. I don't know. Maybe the same way you lived when the core touched you. You changed. And maybe I changed too. Daniel rubbed his freed wrists, but before he could ask more, he felt it again. A sharp pull deep inside his chest, like something calling to him. He gasped, clutching at his chest. The glowing marks lit up violently, flooding the room with blue light. The girl stepped back in awe. Daniel, your body is speaking to the core. It's answering you. But Daniel wasn't so sure. It didn't feel like a gift. It felt like a curse clawing its way out of him. His vision blurred, and for a moment he wasn't in the chamber anymore. He was standing in a battlefield, the ground shaking with explosions. Alien soldiers screamed in fear as a figure wrapped in blue fire tore through them. That figure was him. Daniel staggered, nearly falling. No, he whispered. I don't want this. The little girl grabbed his arm, grounding him back to reality. Her small voice broke through the storm. Then fight it? Don't let it control you. Before Daniel could respond, the door crashed open. Guards stormed in, their weapons glowing with strange energy. The little girl tried to shield him, but one guard shoved her aside. Daniel's instincts roared to life. The storm inside him broke loose. An instant, blue light exploded from his body. The guards were thrown back like leaves in a hurricane, their weapons shattering against the walls. The chamber shook, the moss on the walls burning away. Daniel stood in the middle of the chaos, his veins glowing like molten fire. The chains at his feet dissolved into nothing. Silence followed, broken only by the groans of the fallen guards. The little girl stared at him, half in fear, half in awe. Daniel, she whispered, you can't stay here. If the Queen sees this, she'll use you or destroy you. But Daniel could barely hear her. The storm in his chest still raged, demanding more. He felt like he could rip the whole palace apart with a thought, and that terrified him more than the guards. The girl tugged at his hand. Come, before more come. She led him through the tunnels, weaving through hidden paths she seemed to know well. Daniel followed, still shaking, still glowing faintly. Every step made him wonder if he was walking deeper into safety or into doom. At last, they reached a narrow chamber with a broken ceiling. Moonlight streamed down, cold and silver. The girl pointed upward. This is the way out, she said. But if you go, they'll call you a fugitive. The Queen will hunt you herself. Daniel looked up at the sky, then back at the little girl. I don't even know where to go, he said. I don't know what I've become. The girl's eyes glowed softly in the moonlight. And we find out together, she said firmly. Maybe the core chose you for a reason. Maybe it wants you to protect us, not destroy us. Daniel almost smiled, but the weight in his chest was still heavy. He climbed toward the broken ceiling, pulling himself into the night air. The alien city stretched before him, towers glowing. Like stars, ships drifting silently above. It was beautiful and terrifying. And somewhere high above, in her throne room, Daniel knew the queen was already watching. Far away in the palace, the queen stood by a window. Her advisors whispered in anger and fear, demanding Daniel's death, but she raised her hand, silencing them. Her glowing eyes narrowed as she watched the faint blue flare rising from the lower halls. "He cannot hide from me," she said softly. "The core chose him, but I will decide what he becomes." The night air hit Daniel's face like cold fire. "You'll never control me," he growled. Her laugh rang out, cold and sharp. "Every vessel says the same before they break." She gestured, and the hall darkened. Walls shimmered with images of past vessels, warriors, beasts, even gods. Of old, each consumed by the same core that now pulsed inside Daniel. All had fallen. All had become her tools. "You see?" she said, her voice echoing with power. "You are not special. You are inevitable." But something flickered in her golden eyes when she looked at him. A hesitation, small but real. Because unlike the others, Daniel's veins still glowed with a light that resisted her pull. The core had not fully submitted to her will. Daniel's body shook, the chains tightening, but deep inside, a voice whispered again, the same voice from the core: protector, destroyer. Choose. His heart thundered, his teeth clenched, and for the first time, he did not feel fear of the voice. He felt anger at being used, anger at being caged. His veins blazed brighter, the chains cracking, sparks flying. The queen's smile faltered. "Impossible," she whispered, stepping back. The hunters tightened their grip on weapons, preparing for chaos. The girl's eyes shone with sudden hope. Daniel forced himself to his feet, his body trembling but unbroken. His voice roared across the hall, shaking. "The walls, I am not your weapon, and I am not your slave." The chains shattered, the core's power exploding outward in a wave of light. The throne hall shook, as if the world itself had felt his defiance. The queen narrowed her eyes, but her smile returned, sharper than ever. "So be it, human," she said softly. "If you will not kneel, then you will burn." The hall filled with tension, soldiers raising weapons, the queen's aura blazing like a storm. And Daniel, standing free at last, realized he was at the heart of her trap all along, but he was done being prey. The next strike would decide everything. The throne hall shook with the echo of shattered chains. Blue fire coursed through Daniel's veins like rivers of lightning. The alien guards stumbled back, their weapons trembling in their hands, and at the center, the queen stood tall, her golden eyes burning with both fury and fascination. The little alien girl screamed his name. Her voice was small, but it pierced through the chaos. Daniel turned his head toward her and gave the faintest nod. He wanted her to know he wasn't done yet. He would not let the queen take her, not while he still drew breath. The queen's armor glowed as she raised her hands. The floor beneath her cracked, sending waves of energy racing outward. "The core chose you," she said coldly, "but it was always mine to command." Her words struck like thunder inside his skull. Daniel felt his body seize, the glow in his veins flickering. It was like invisible chains were dragging him to his knees again. The queen's will pressed down, heavy as iron. "Submit," she whispered. "Submit, and you will live." Daniel grit his teeth, sweat dripping down his face. His muscles trembled under her invisible grip. But then he remembered the girl, her tiny hands pressing against his wounds, her glowing tears, her broken voice asking why he saved her. That memory flared brighter than any pain. His voice broke out, raw and defiant. "I don't live for you." The fire inside him surged. The queen's power cracked like glass against a storm. The floor exploded, throwing soldiers into the air. The queen snarled, her golden aura flaring brighter. She leapt forward faster than sight, her blade long and burning with alien light, slashed down at him. Daniel raised his arm. The blade met flesh, yet sparks flew, as though steel had struck steel. His veins burned blue, forming a shield of pure energy around him. The clash shook the hall. The queen's strength was immense, centuries of power behind each strike. But Daniel was no longer just a man. The core had made him something else, something neither of them fully understood. Each strike sent shockwaves through the walls. Statues crumbled, the ceiling cracked. The guards could do nothing but watch. The hall itself was becoming their battlefield. You don't understand. The queen hissed as their blades of light and flame collided again and again. You are not fighting me. You are fighting destiny, Daniel roared back. Then destiny picked the wrong man. Their final clash threw them apart. Daniel slammed into a pillar, coughing blood. The queen landed with predatory grace. Her eyes narrowed, but he saw it now. For the first time, cracks spread across her armor. Her breaths came sharper. She was not untouchable. From the corner, the girl screamed, "Daniel! Behind you!" He spun just as a hunter lunged. His glowing fist shot forward, shattering the alien's weapon in one blow. He whirled again, striking the floor, sending a shockwave that threw others back. But it cost him. His knees buckled, his strength fading. Fast, the queen saw it. She smiled coldly. "You cannot win," she whispered. "You're burning yourself alive." Daniel knew she was right. Every pulse of the core burned deeper into him. Each strike was tearing him apart, but he also knew he didn't need to survive this fight. He only needed to end it. The queen raised her hands, summoning all her power at once. Golden fire filled the hall, rising like a storm of suns. She towered in the center of it, her voice echoing like thunder. "Bow, human, and I will let the child live." Daniel's chest heaved, his veins blazing with defiance. He turned his head toward the girl one last time. Her glowing eyes met his, tears streaming down her cheeks. And in that moment, Daniel smiled. "Sorry, kid," he whispered. "I don't." "Bow." He launched himself forward. The core's fire exploded, brighter than the sun. Blue light collided with golden fire, swallowing the hall in a storm of destruction. The impact shook the city above. Towers trembled. Citizens cried out as light spilled across the sky. The hunters were thrown like leaves in a hurricane, and at the center, Daniel and the queen collided in a final clash. For a moment, everything froze. The world held its breath. And then the golden fire shattered. The queen screamed as cracks split her crown, her armor, her very skin. The core's power tore through her like judgment. Daniel's body shook, his veins bursting with light. He could feel himself breaking apart, but he held on. He forced the energy into her, every drop of it, until her scream was swallowed by silence. The queen collapsed, her golden eyes wide in disbelief. The throne behind her crumbled into dust. Her body fell still, and her empire trembled with her fall. Daniel staggered, barely standing. His body was smoke and fire. The girl rushed forward, catching his hand, her small fingers trembling. "Don't go," she begged. "Please, don't leave me." He looked down at her, his breath shallow. Her eyes shone like stars, full of hope and grief. And for a moment, he felt peace. "You'll be safe now," he whispered, his voice breaking. "That's all that matters." His body flared one last time, the light from his veins spreading outward, washing across the city. It healed the wounded, silenced the weapons, and burned away the queen's banners. The core had chosen, and in its final gift, it gave freedom. When the light faded, Daniel's body was gone. Only his broken chains remained on the floor, glowing faintly before turning to dust. The girl fell to her knees, her tears glowing brighter than ever. Around her, the people of the city gathered, silent, Some bowed their heads. Others raised their arms in respect, for they all understood the human had not been a weapon. He had been a protector, and though he was gone, his sacrifice would live in their memory. The story of the human who faced the queen, who refused to kneel. The story of the man who turned fire into hope, and in the silent air of the broken throne. Hall, the core pulsed faintly, waiting, because stories never end, they only begin again.